Others gave flowers away, yes they did. Down in Monterey, down in Monterey.
Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. That was a little snip of the song Monterey, originally by Eric Burdon and the Animals, and all of that video was actually shot in and around Monterey, California, where I was last week, which is why you got a video that was an old video last week. And somebody complained in the comments that it was a karaoke video, and I just wanted to say I don't put any karaoke videos on this YouTube channel. Everything is played by me. I was actually really proud of that one because there's a horn section on it, and I don't play any horns. So I used a fuzz tone guitar to imitate the horns, and it came out kind of good. It's a technique they used to use in the 60s. A lot of people don't know this, but Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, that little it's supposed to be a saxophone, but it's actually Keith Richards playing a fuzz tone guitar. And my wife is in the background laboring in the fields, so you may see some of that. So today I wanted to talk to you about the niceification of Zen, and this is inspired by a comment I got on one of the videos I put on this channel the week before last. And I was talking in that video about how my approach to this practice is that I'm not here to kind of hold your hand and lead you on the journey and kind of, you know, and I used as an example, I'm kind of doing this practice more for myself, and I allow other people to join. That's why I kind of like the model of an apprentice. You know, an apprentice is like, if you want to learn pottery, one of the ways you learn pottery is you go find somebody who's good at pottery and you hang around that person and watch how they do it, and they don't actually give you any lessons. They just allow you to hang out and watch how they do it. This is how I learned guitar. I knew this guy named Dave Chamberlain, who I saw him a few years ago for the first time in decades, so he's still around. But I knew him in high school, and he was a great guitar player, but he had no patience for teaching a twerp like me how to play guitar. And so what I would do is I would follow him around and sit there when his band played and watch his fingers. And this is how I learned to play guitar without him giving me any sort of formal lessons. And this is kind of the way I think Zen should be approached. And as an example of that, or as a way of explaining that, I started to go into this little rant about how I don't want somebody hanging on me going, oh, help me with my daddy issues, and, you know, be the daddy that, you know, I can blame for all my problems. I've had that happen. And I think any of us who do this stuff have had those kind of people around. I can remember my first Zen teacher. There were a couple of guys who showed up to his things who were definitely, you know, that's what they were looking for. They were looking for a daddy substitute. They were looking for somebody to whine to, and it just it wasn't going to work. So the niceification of Zen is, I think, one of the reasons why people make comments like that. The person, I forgot, did I explain the comment? The comment was that the person had said that what I said was not in accordance with the Bodhisattva vow. And the Bodhisattva vow is, I vow to save all beings. And as I always point out when I bring that up, my friend Rob gave me a great version of this years ago, decade, maybe at least 10 years ago, where he said, you know, I think that vow is, I vow to save all beings from myself, which I think is a really good way of thinking it, of that vow. So that's one of the things that vow means, vowing to save all beings from myself. And but there's this kind of tendency, oh, my hair's going weird. Anyway, there's this kind of tendency people have these days of expecting the Zen teacher, or the Buddhist teacher probably in general, but I know Zen more than the other forms of Buddhism, to be this, as I said in that video, what was the person who I had a problem with in New York, who said, you know, I think the duty of the Zen teacher is to hold the student wisely. And I'm like, I don't think that's the duty of the Zen teacher at all. I'm not into holding the student wisely. So one of the things I wanted to mention in this context is that when I first started, there's a wasp flying around. I hope it's not making a nest. Anyway, when I first started getting into Zen, I didn't know nothing about Zen. So I took this class. Everybody who's read my books knows this. I took a class at Kent State University when I was 18 or 19 years old called Zen Buddhism. And I had lived in Kenya in Africa as a child. So I was roughly familiar with Hinduism because there's a lot of Indian people who live in Kenya. So, and one of my dad's best friends was an Indian guy named Ramesh. And so I was interested in that. That planted a seed in me, and I was interested in studying that. So I looked for a class when I was in university that would have something to do with Hinduism, Indian religion. And the only thing I could find was Zen Buddhism. And the sum total of what I knew about Zen Buddhism at the time was I knew that Buddhism was a religion, an Indian religion that was somehow related to Hinduism. I didn't know how. And I knew that Zen was a Japanese form of that Indian religion. And I thought, well, okay, that's as close as I'm going to get. So I signed up for it. So I was going into this with a completely blank slate. And one of the things that occurred to me while I was doing that study was like, I don't know if I want to get into this. Because one of the things the teacher of that class, who became my first Zen teacher, he talked about a lot of the classical Zen stories. And the classical Zen stories are just full of violence, you know, quite frankly. I mean, the teachers are hitting their students all the time. There's one koan where the teacher twists his student's nose. You know, always makes me think of a Three Stooges routine. Actually, I've often pondered this. I never could find two other guys who wanted to join me. That we would do little videos based on the Zen koans, but do them as if they're the Three Stooges. Because a lot of the Zen koans in the old days, the old Zen koans sound like Three Stooges routines, just smacking and twisting and all this stuff, and yelling. Hitting people with sticks happens all the time. One of the great sources of some of this, I went and found on my bookshelf today, the record of Lin Ji, and I was just flipping through it and found this one. This is just a story of Lin Ji. He's also known as Rinzai. So when you hear about Rinzai Zen, it's Zen that's supposedly based on the teachings of this guy, Lin Ji or Rinzai. Depends on how you transliterate the name into Roman letters. Anyway, this story goes, and this is one I just found at random. I wasn't even looking very hard. Huang Po, which Huang Po I really love, he's one of the great Zen masters, and he was a student of Lin Ji. Huang Po said, well, why not say we'll eat a meal again tomorrow? We're kind of picking up this story in the middle. And then, why talk about tomorrow? Eat it right now, said Lin Ji, slapping Huang Po in the face. This lunatic has come here again to pull the tiger's whiskers, said Huang Po. Lin Ji shouted and went out. And, you know, I won't read the rest of the story, but that's kind of typical stuff for a Zen story. And I, as I think I said, was like, I don't know, do I want to get into this? I don't know if I want to get slapped and beaten up and yelled at and stuff. And here's another one. This book didn't exist when I was a young whippersnapper first studying Zen, but it exists now. And so it's another good source. Eat, Sleep, Sit by Kaoru Nonomura. And this is the English translation of a Japanese book that was quite popular in Japan when it came out. And it's all about a contemporary Zen training in a Heiji and I think maybe some other monasteries in the Soto Zen tradition. So this isn't just a Rinzai Zen thing. And there's a lot of slapping and hitting and beating up going on in there. So, you know, that's kind of what you're signing up for in Japanese Zen. But the problem is when Zen comes to America, you can't do that. You know, it's really forbidden to get in any way that kind of interaction between the teacher and the student. Now, the reason for this is because obviously, as I'm sure you've thought of right now as you're watching this video, there's a great potential for abuse if you kind of let that be the norm, if you let slapping, hitting, and bopping on the head be the norm. So there's a great potential for abuse to occur under the guise of this sort of teaching, but it's not supposed to be that way. It's more like what they call tough love. It's understanding that sometimes the best way to get somebody kind of out of their head and back into reality is to smack them on the face, because that's a very bodily sensation, and that will effectively most of the time interrupt the person's train of thought. If they're getting very thinky and they're getting way up in their heads, bang, that can trigger something, and it often helps the student to come to a genuine awakening experience. That's why it's so often featured in the koans. But the American version of Zen has taken as its model, and this is something I've talked about recently on this channel, a therapist. So the Zen teacher is supposed to be like a therapist, like a different sort of therapist. And if you're a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or whatever, you cannot hit your students. You can't even touch your student for any reason at all. And I think it's kind of a shame that we've taken this off the table. Like, you shouldn't be doing it all the time. You shouldn't be abusive to your students or anything like that. But just taking it completely out of the table, off the table, whatever, I don't know the phrase, and making it completely verboten, forbidden, is no good, because you lose something. In my own experience, being a Zen teacher with Western students, occasionally somebody Asian comes along, but I've had this. I remember one time in particular. This happened in Europe, but the guy wasn't American. I forget where he was from, but he was definitely very, very heavily influenced by the American way of doing things. And I don't know. I'll leave that out. But trust me, he really was. And we were having a rather heated discussion, and I was really trying, because I thought this guy had some kind of potential to come to a deeper understanding of things. He was a scholar of Buddhism, like somebody who really spent a long time working on studying Buddhism. And we're having this and he's getting, I can tell this guy is getting way up in his head, like he's really, really racing off in his mind. So what I did not slap him or hit him. I poked him in the shoulder, boop, like that. Boop, like that. The guy freaked the F out, like just totally had a meltdown. My God, I'd never expected that. I'd never seen anything like that. About, I have trauma and I can't be touched and I can't, and he just went on a complete rampage. And that basically ended the discussion, and I apologized to him, and I said, really, I'm sorry that I touched you on the shoulder, with your trauma and everything. This little side rant here. One of the stories I think should be taught in American schools like 4 times a day is the story of the boy who cried wolf, because I think Americans are really bad with that story. The story of the boy who go look up the story of the boy who cried wolf. I'm not going to tell the story to you, but it's a story about somebody, the little kid who's like trying to get everybody excited in this village by going, "There's a wolf! There's a wolf!" And there isn't really a wolf, and he gets everybody excited. But then one day there is a real wolf, and he goes, "There's a wolf! There's a wolf!" And the people just ignore him, and then the kid gets eaten by the wolf. So good for him. Anyway, that's a story that I think we should understand, and we should also understand that crying wolf doesn't just affect me, the guy who cries wolf. It affects everybody else. So in that case, I don't know, because everybody is so used to these days claiming trauma and and crying about trauma, that I don't know if this is a guy who actually does have deep-seated trauma about being touched, which I kind of doubt, but just from my other interactions with him, I don't think he was. I think he was pulling a boy who cried wolf routine on me. But I don't know that, because everybody does it. you know. And so if you do that, dear watcher of this video, it's not just you that you're affecting, it's everybody else. You're affecting people who really do have these problems, and now are not going to be believed because everybody is claiming trauma. Anyway, sorry for that aside, just a little aside. So I think it's a shame that the danger has been taken out of Zen. And you know, this is probably people who are going to react badly to this who are watching this video, but I really do think that whereas something like therapy has developed into something where you have to have all these safeguards and you have to have these, you know, committees who oversee, you know, who's the good psychiatrist and who's not, and who's the abusive ones, and blah 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 blah. Maybe that's necessary. I don't know. I wonder sometimes if even therapy could benefit from a little bit less of those kind of restrictions. But definitely Zen doesn't work if there's this kind of box you've got to put it in, and there's no danger at all for the student entering it. As I said at the beginning of this video, felt like I am entering into a practice that has a potential for danger. I mean, not danger like I'm going to lose my life or get seriously injured, but, you know, a danger that I am not going to be treated nicely all the time. This is the niceification of Zen, is that the Zen teachers these days think that they have to treat everybody, you know, super nice and say yes to whatever they want and be, you know, inclusive and all this other stuff so that nobody feels bad about anything at all. My own interactions with my teachers, my first teacher was not, he was a real nice guy. He was American. He might have been influenced by that kind of stuff, but you know, he was forthright with me sometimes. Nishijima Roshi, on the other hand, he would never be physical with anybody. He'd never hit anybody or twist their nose or anything. Not that I saw. But as far as verbal interactions with him, he didn't play nice. You know, if you said something stupid, he would tell you that you had said something stupid. You know, and I remember one time being around when he had this dojo. He had this place that had been a dorm for people who worked for the company that he worked for. He worked for a soap and cosmetics company, which is, we'll go there some other day. But as was the thing that Japanese companies used to do, they would put their new employees in a dorm and make them live together for the first year or so of their working experience. Well, that trend had kind of gone away, and so they let Nishijima Roshi have the dorm that they used to use for that purpose. So there was all these people living together. Nishijima Roshi lived there, I think, three or 4 days a week, not full time. He had his own house somewhere else, but there was an incident that came up where one of the people who lived there was being inappropriate with, he was a man, and he was being inappropriate with some of the women who were there. He didn't commit actual assault, but he was being very inappropriate, okay? And Nishijima Roshi got wind of this, and I was there when he threw the guy out. And he wasn't nice about it. I mean, he was not mean about it, but he just said, "You are leaving this dojo now. You cannot live here anymore. Get out, pack your bags, be gone." And there was no discussion, there was no argument, there was no, like, I know you've gone through trauma and everything, you know, there's none of that. He just was like, bang. And I saw him do this with interactions in his lectures when people would bring something up and say, you know, kind of argue with him, and he would say, it is your right to be incorrect. You know, he wouldn't mince words when he thought somebody was being stupid. So, and I think maybe some of that is allowed in America's Zen centers and things, but you certainly can't have too much of that, because people, the students who come there expect to be treated like patients and expect to be treated like customers, and the customer is always right, you know. And I think a lot of the Zen centers being run for commercial purposes are afraid to lose customers, you know, and afraid that somebody might run off because they're not getting their satisfactory experience there. And even if they're not really concerned for the bottom line because they want to make a lot of money, because I don't think most Zen centers in America are in it, you know, for the money. There are a few, I think, but some of them are such large operations that it's serious business. They can't afford to lose people. They can't. They gotta keep the butts in seats, or they're not going to be able to keep maintaining the center. So they've locked themselves into this situation where they can't. You know, they can't treat their customers. They have to treat their students as customers because they can't afford to lose them. So yeah, there's my little rant about this. And so yeah, the niceification of Zen might be part of the downfall of Zen. I don't know. Maybe we can get over it. Maybe we can find a way around it, but I don't know. Anyway, so if you want to contribute to me talking more about the niceification of Zen and other such subjects, you can go, if you're watching this on YouTube, right below the screen there is a description section, and it's got links to my PayPal and my Patreon accounts. Or if you don't like that, you can go to the URL that I've put on the screen right now below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you'll also find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts, and those are my main ways of making a living, so I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. Alright, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, did you enjoy that video? Did you like hearing me talk about beating people up? I never hit you, though. I would never. Actually, I sprayed him with a water bottle when we first got him because he was barking incessantly at 3 in the morning every morning. So I sprayed him in the face with water 2 times, and he got the message after the second time, and he's never barked at 3 in the morning again since then. All right, Ziggy. You want to go back inside and edit the video? All right, bye.